Welcome to the Natural Way of Being video blog. This blog is titled Finding Common Ground. I wanted to share an experience that happened about 3 weeks ago. It was right after the election. And as you may recall, it was a time when there was a lot of talk of how divided our country was, which is, I guess, how you'd expect after an election. But even more so this time, it just seemed like our country's pretty divided. And so there was a couple friends and we were doing this meditation to try to put out some energy to make the world a better place. And we decided that we were going to address this sense of division, and we were going to offer some prayers for connection and unity during our meditation. So I sat down to do my meditation and started gathering. It's like, well, how do I approach this thing? And the first thing that I thought of was, how about if we worked on finding a common perspective? And we could offer some prayers for that. And right as I had that thought, I heard a real strong voice. It's like, that'll never work. And so it was the type of voice that I was inclined to listen to. So I continued to move on. And the next idea that kind of came to me, well, we could find things we have in common, and we could find what some common ground. And then the example that I kind of thought of was, no matter which side of the aisle we're on and whatever our views are, there's some things that we agree upon. Say that we want the world to be a better place for our children, is something that maybe most people, I would think, most people on the planet, most human beings would want that. It seems like it'd be fairly instinctual, and so here's something that we can agree on. And now we may have vastly different ideas about how we get there. And right about, as I guess it was almost like a validation, right about when I had this idea of finding common ground, I heard the lyrics to an old song by Sting. I looked it up, it was 1985, and it was called Russians. It's and the lyrics the Russians love their children too. And it's like, okay, well, must be on the right track here. So there's that common ground. And Sting was singing about it 35 years ago, and maybe that's a way we can approach this. So for the rest of the meditation, I sent out prayers and energy and meditated upon finding this common ground and finding values that we can actually agree on. And after the meditation, I sat with it a little bit, and it makes sense, because the perspective thing is kind of a way of seeing things, and we get pretty attached to the way we see things. It gets into our beliefs and our notions of how the world is, and it's a little third eye, but a little more intellectual. And now when we get into what we love and what we value, it's coming down into the heart a little more, and maybe there's a little more receptivity and love and kind of connection, some empathy that can happen down there. So then I started thinking about how we might actually apply this, and I thought about where I work at a hospital 2 days a week, and there are some people that I work with that have very, very different political and social views than I do, and I still, they're cool people, but we see the world very differently. And I was thinking about how I could approach someone like this. And what kind of came to me is to find that common ground, and it happens quite a bit, and someone will say a view that's very different than mine. It just kind of hits me like, whoa, that's different than what I believe. And so and then what I was thinking is I could ask, well, why do you think that? And try to get it down, to something that I could relate to, and of course they would need to be a little open-minded, I imagine, for me to ask, well, why do you think that? And some of the people at work are, they just see things very differently. So for example, say that, one person thinks that one way they could make the world a better place would be to reduce global warming, reduce your global footprint, and so that might be one way. And say another person, maybe from the other side of the aisle politically might be that we should reclaim some old school values, and then that, the world's kind of going to hell in a handbasket because we're just getting a little, too loose with our values. So anyway, by going back and forth and asking each other, well, why do you believe about, why are you big on global warming? And it's like, okay, well, I really want there to be, an environment. I want there to be a world. I want there to be a healthy world for our children. And maybe the person could understand that and see, okay, well, it's not just that they think it's cool for global warming. They really believe that the key to a better life for their children is to, address global warming. And that's the way they want to make it a better place for their children. And the same thing from the other side. It's like, well, maybe someone believes that there needs to be more. We need to sit down and eat dinner as a family together, or we need to go to church and find out, our love for God and whatever that is. It's like, so, and maybe they believe that that is what's important to help their children. If we could look beyond the divergent kind of approaches and look at what's the common intent that we have here. We want to help and then it becomes, we both want to help our children, but we just want to help our children in different ways. And then we could almost be on the same team where one of us can go fight global warming and work on our footprint, and the other, you buy a Prius or whatever, and the other person is going to, sit down with their kids and their grandkids and have dinner together and play games and, and do wholesome things on the farm. And they can be like, then kind of working in the same direction. It's just like, I'm making the world a better place this way for our children, and she's making the world a better place this way for her children. Now we're kind of we're shoulder to shoulder, and we may be going about it very different, but maybe both are needed. Maybe, and there's, I always say to a lot of my friends and clients, and there's plenty to work on in the world. Like, find something that resonates with you and go do it, and find your own way to make the world a better place. And it could, so then we have common ground, and then we're wanting the same things. And it might take a little, a little less reactivity and a little more delving deep and just asking, well, why? And so it's kind of a little glass half full, focusing on the common ground. And so my invitation is to work with that when you interact with people, and to not shy away from people that you have divergent views with, like not just hang out with people that you agree with. Like, I get to do that at the hospital because there's all different types there, but like go and talk to them and have some discourse and try to find some common ground. And then you can learn to just agree to disagree on some ways to get there, but you agree on what we can do to make the world better for our children. So thank you very much for watching or listening to this blog, and I hope you really enjoy your week.